It's going to be the Yone.
So here's the question, though, because ThunderTalk, we just mentioned, like, Lilia's up, Zyra's up. Those are the two favorite AP junglers for XiaoHuanGren. But you also have Sejuani priority up. And the big pairing has always been Sejuani. There is some worry, though, that Tarzan might just steal the Sejuani away. You don't have to. But here it comes through. The VODS doesn't have to be banned on red side. And Hope will lock in his most automatic champion. And this is, oh my god. This is what I get. You know what? This is what I get. Yeah. This is what I get for falling for the hovers. In my defense, that lovely white line was all the way down. I thought the lock-in was coming, Kman, but instead, we're going to run back game one of this very matchup where Tarzan had arguably his biggest game of the split playing this Naafiri.
Yeah, and since then as well, Tarzan has had even more success on this champion. It's been unbelievably dominant for AL. They have just really been able to run a lot of teams, putting one of the best junglers in the world and one of the best jungle champions, and now they're just getting full comfort. Naafiri and Varus locked in. Okay. It feels like a pretty good start to the draft for AL.
But both teams are kind of handshaking. Everyone likes to throw around, like in sports, the win-win trades you see. Right now, I'm feeling the win-win trades coming through right now in this draft. I mean, TT, they can't be mad with getting what is, I will fall for it again. I am a fool. What I believe will be a Sejuani lock-in alongside the Yone. So you got the premier, that is the premier red side turn that a lot of teams have to fear. So you get that for TT on this blue side. But now the question becomes, how do you build around this? Do you look for what Hoya melee champions do you want to put with them? Do you want another big tank next to Sejuani? Where does your head go, Kman?
I think there's a couple of really interesting options. One champion that we've seen rise in priority a ton this patch is Shen, and I really wouldn't hate that in this instance. I think that would be really fun to see. But it's actually going to be the AD locked in as the answer to Varus. Misfortune, you know, a pretty common answer right now. Varus kind of the all-arounder, I would say, in the bot lane, although he definitely has some strengths and weaknesses. Misfortune can match a lot of that pressure in the early game while still being relevant later on. And another pick of the patch that's been able to rise recently in the Annie, selected to close out the first part of this draft for AL. Interesting.
Okay, so Shanks, this is a very intriguing lock into the Yone, right? It's not as safe as a lot of those other control mages you left up, like Azir, or you could have played for the Rise, you could play a bit from space. Annie is definitely kind of a threat for SeTab as a player who is never afraid to force a 1v1 early in mid lane. So that's going to be a fun matchup, especially how much we talked about SeTab being, you know, sort of the driving factor for TT early success, and Shanks we're still looking for to bring his consistency back through for AL. But it's time to now start picking out some of these supports. The Rakan and the Alistar come off the board for now. Do you expect TT to throw another AD ban? Or I just forgot that whole blocked Varus. All supports, K-Man. I'm getting thrown off.
Yeah, I imagine this is going to be 4 engaged supports. Alistar, Nautilus, Leona, even Braum. Like, take those things off. I understand you just don't want to deal with it. Whatever you feel is going to be the easiest to combo off of. I would expect Braum to be the final ban here to go along the Misfortune, and it is. That's a pretty dangerous combo to leave up. I would ban it for TT as well. I think neither team really wants to see that champion on their comp with how things have developed, but if you're looking at things like Alistar or Nautilus, you know, Leona, they make a lot of sense. Alistar already taken off the board, of course. So just going to be interesting to see what they round out the comps with. Top laner still yet to be taken. That's not very common here in terms of second rotation. And ooh, you know, you don't want to talk about hovers.
I'm not falling for it.
It's a famous pick. You know, you got to at least give it the respect it deserves. Flandre's Graves is historically well known, so you at least got to give it some respect, but I agree. There's so many options up. So
yeah, this is the handshake I thought was going to happen. So you take Leona away. I think this is just Nautilus. As much as AL could justify stealing the Royal for Kael, I don't think it fits their combo enough to really force it. You're really single target oriented with a Naafiri, a Varus. Really, Annie's the only AoE, and again, these two teams are kind of just trading what their comps like at this point. You get the Nautilus for that, point and click CC that comes across on a one target, and then TT is like, yeah, we'll take the rel that's all about AoE combos, trying to set up this bullet time. TT have drafted themselves a fun Wombo comp, and for a team that we have had questions about executing in a lot of spots, I liked it off their first series win in a while. They're drafting confidently to play through a team fight.
Yeah, I'm interested by the hover. You don't want to mention anything too early, but one thing we hadn't considered is that
There we go.
Yeah,
yep.
I was going to say, Hoya's
Okay.
actually a pretty proficient Yone player. It's something he's played a lot of. I didn't want to mention it too early in the draft, but it's going to be the Yorick as the answer. We've seen Yorick be very, very heavily prioritized, and it just adds a bit of a different dimension to this team. You talked about the Wombo, the ability to play 5v5. Well, here's a secondary win condition, and I think that that's something that a lot of teams, you know, really have benefited from throughout this year, is having a couple of different ways to win the game, especially here in the LPL when things can get so chaotic. But really on the top side for ThunderTalk, you're just going to want to be generating as big of a lead as possible, and AL answering saying, we just want to shut that down. We don't want to really allow that Yorick to get too far out of control. It will be the Scion as the answer, and we've got our comps adjusted here.
Yeah, I'll say it. TT, draft-wise, I think they've got a comp that you mentioned, even with the second win comp, works so well. The fear that I always have with Yorick comps from draft, because gameplay, right, you can get afraid for a Yorick if a team falls behind because they don't have space to, you know, extend lanes, but that, I just want to take it from a draft perspective. You drafted a really powerful team fight comp on 4. They have 4 members that can confidently team fight without the Yorick, so you're just looking to buy space, force fights on your terms, and Hoya's doing his thing in the background. AL on the flip side here came in, definitely looking for another Tarzan masterclass, and they need to be proactive in this early game. Something that you pointed out is how both these teams find a lot of their success.
Yeah, I think proactivity in the early game is nail on the head in terms of what you can say about AL. If they are behind in gold going into the late game here, I think this gets nearly impossible for them to be able to win. This is going to be a very difficult one. They're going to have to establish pressure early. The positive on that is I do think they have the lane setups to be able to do that. Annie in particular should have prio in the mid lane over Yone, at least in the 1v1, depending on how much pressure is put there. So I'm excited to see. We highlighted the middle of the map. Shanks versus SeTab is a very interesting matchup here, and it looks like it's going to be a big one.
It's going to be a big one. Also knowing that both of these teams have very different ideologies when it comes to resource allocation towards their mid laners. Anyone's Legend definitely very well known for wanting to play towards bot side. Tarzan playing for himself in a lot of these scenarios. And XiaoHuanGren showing in these last couple series for TT that maybe playing a lot for SeTab is the way for them to steal wins and find series wins as we get ready to go on to the Rift shortly between these two teams. Does give us a bit more time. Oh, there we go. You know what? I've just been a little too quick. I've been a little too quick to the trigger to start off these drafts and these games. But here we go, Kman, looking to see what does TT look like off a series win. Can they find that magic from Split 1 once more?
I was hoping to hear a few more Gyos there, but
yeah, that's what I thought we were leaving space for.
You know, we got a couple. You can't be too mad about that, but you're absolutely right. I think that there were a couple of things to really focus on in the early game here. I think the main thing for me is we see AL kind of 4-man down on the bot side. This has become a little bit more common as of late. I think the main thing that I really, really want to watch out for AL and their ability to play out the early game is just exactly what is going to happen with Tarzan in terms of pre-level 4. Are we getting full clears from both of these junglers, or does Tarzan actually want to surprise and maybe be a bit more aggressive? We're actually seeing the invade come out here to kick off, which is a very interesting start, but I certainly do not dislike it for AL.
And again, this for Tarzan is just how is peak Tarzan is when he's able to just invoke his will on the Rift, and teams really just have to scramble to see how to counter this play right now. And XiaoHuanGren will go for the correct read here, recognizing vertical jungle is coming across, but this does still give Tarzan a pretty big win because this Nefiri clear is going to be much faster no matter how quickly XiaoHuanGren recognized the lanes or the jungle state of this game.
Yeah, early level 2s here for the bot lane as well for AL should give them at least the push for now. I consider this a pretty even matchup bot lane, but if Tarzan is going to put a ton of pressure down there, things do become a lot more difficult, and with them kind of being stuck at level 1 here, Tarzan, you know, theoretically could try to go for something very aggressive if he wanted to at level 3, and he is.
Yeah, it is cleanse on 1xN, not the barrier, so you don't get as much help with this dive. 1xN is getting cornered, corralled towards his turret. It's going to cleanse the ignite. First kill's going to go down. 1xN flashes out. Tarzan, luckily, with the untargetable, is able to drop the aggro because one more shot would have made that a big TT win.
Yeah, it's just a little bit greedy there for AL. They just go a little bit too aggressive onto what I would consider to be a target that had a little bit too much HP. No poke really coming down before that play to make it happen, and they really are punished for it. We see a small trade with SeTab in the mid lane. He's got to take these as much as he can, but that's a big win, in my opinion, for ThunderTalk. Unfortunately for them, the kill going over to the Rel in exchange for Tarzan on the Neferi, but it should slow down Tarzan at least enough to, you know, create a situation where things are a little bit more even in terms of where the jungle priority is going to go as Kael makes his way top lane.
Yeah, they're also sending Hope up here, so they're forcing a very early lane swap, which continues to really show how AL in these early games are so impressive to me, how they react to the map state. This is a simple. It feels like a simple read off of that dive, but it's still a big one to make because Flandre on the Scion, right? He's going to TP, he's going to catch this wave. He doesn't care about wing 1 versus 2. You want to try and shut the Yorick out of his power spike as quickly as possible. Really feeling like even though there's been very little action came in, you can already start to tell what the difference is between AL and TT, even if you turned off the records.
Yeah, you can definitely see a difference in priority. One thing I want to note in terms of the lane swaps on the top side, this is something we're seeing a lot less common now that we are on the Spirit Blossom map, as opposed to the Noxus map previously, as, of course, the Grubs timer is much more delayed. For those who haven't been around in a couple of weeks, it's definitely a little bit different now in terms of how you want to play around things. We have Dragon spawning in 30 seconds, and with bot lanes on the top side, it looks like neither team wants to full prioritize that, at least early on. It's become a bit more standard, but Tarzan, once again, looking to contest.
He has the timers on these Raptors, and he steal away a couple of the small ones, just what we call a classic ego check of junglers. Stealing away as many little camps as possible, no matter how minimal they are, but XiaoHuanGren definitely has to respect that Tarzan is going to hover here. Neither soul lanes are coming over to help the TT jungler, and Tarzan is just much stronger at this point off of that first kill. The Tunneler versus no items for XiaoHuanGren, who maybe is just trying to play a bit of a stall job. Tarzan does take a lot of damage. Hoya now has arrived to try and cover, and Tarzan is way up creek with no paddle right now, stuck in the might of Yorick, and Hoya is going to slap him down. 2 flashes burn. TT doesn't care. The dog is sent back to the kennel.
I know I said I wanted Tarzan to be aggressive, but I think I should have probably specified a little bit more what kind of aggressive plays we were looking for. He just full invades a Sejuani who can full lockdown with a Yorick right there. It feels like a very weird play for Tarzan to make, just not respecting the roam from Hoya at all. I'm not sure if Flandre just didn't make the play. SeTab.
SeTab, my friend, the fate-sealed whiffs. Lucky that Shanks on this Annie does not have enough damage to turn that around. But more space bought for Shanks. Nonetheless.
Yeah, it's an interesting play for SeTab to go for. If he hits that, I think it actually becomes really, really interesting, but we kind of see the Annie nerfs coming into play there, with Tibbers being a little bit less strong than he was last patch, just a tad bit at the very least. So that really coming in clutch for SeTab, understanding the limits there, but because of that play with Tarzan, it's going to be XiaoHuanGren that does actually secure that first dragon. I say that, but Kael is here.
Smite check.
Smite should be available, yeah.
Oh my god. Kael is tired of just setting up his teammates. This guy's trying to throw hands now on the Nautilus. That does take the Ignite away for the time being. Gold, though, still a little bit in control of AL, and that's mostly because Flandre is playing what I would consider the opposite of a normal Scion game right now. He is up 20 CS over a Yorick matchup. So not what you always see. And this is a good time as ever to bring up that the last time I saw Flandre against TT on this Scion. Okay, we're gonna have to bring up that point later.
Feather?
This Kael is throwing down dredge lines. Feather, though, able to stall out well. 1xN. Premier clicks as always,
Tarzan's
getting out
here.
maximum damage, but Tarzan does swing down first. The pack is out for revenge here as Kael flashes away from the crash down, then throws the dredge line right at a dismounted Feather, serving up a kill on ice for Hope in AL.
Yeah, again, staying active for Tarzan, this time with a much more reliable play, but he's not done. They're going to look for the dive here on 1xN with the wave crashing.
Okay, Kael did back. Tarzan throws himself
level 6.
right to the caution, into 1xN, drops the turret aggro, masterfully so. Hope can get the kill through. Tarzan making up for those mistakes at the Krugs, finds himself his second kill of the game.
Yeah, it's unfortunate timing for 1xN. He hit level 6 in the middle of that fight. If he hits it just a couple of seconds earlier, perhaps he can thin the wave enough to actually, dissuade that play, but we're not done.
Oh, SeTab. He wasn't expecting Kael to be so close to cover to Shanks. Feather and XiaoHuanGren dive on in, but Kael's health bar is really lasting. The Glacial Prison has to be committed for Kael to finally drop. But a ton of resources allocated just to find a kill onto the level 4 Nautilus.
Yeah, it's a nice counterplay from ThunderTalk. They do it to try and secure grub priority here as they have spawned on the map, but Tarzan now here as well.
Behind.
And Shanks is still full health. Teleport.
Feather does not have access to the Magnet Storm, and there's no ultimate for XiaoHuanGren, so they've definitely got to run their way out. Flandre does run into a bit of a wall, doesn't matter, getting the slows. Hoya does not have the flash available, so the knockup is going to land, and the Maiden is going to watch the Yorick drop and follow through. Great punish from AL, knowing so many ultimates were used just to kill off Kael minutes ago.
Yeah, it's a really nice play there from AL to, again, understand exactly what ThunderTalk have at their disposal. I think another big part of that 1xN just slightly late to the play because of that bot lane dive, and so there's no bullet time to be able to turn things around. That's a big reason why you want Misfortune in this game, is to be able to kind of influence a lot of these plays and a lot of these skirmishes, but just not there to influence it. I think you correctly called out earlier as well, big CS lead for Flandre on the top side. Things, we talked about AL really needing to generate that pressure, and, even in terms of what we talked about in the pre-show, talking about AL needing to control the tempo of the game, they're doing exactly that, and that should lead to them controlling a lot of these objectives, specifically this next dragon spawning in 2 minutes that I imagine Tarzan is going to have a lot of interest in securing.
Without a doubt, who's looking to just continue the amount of snow and the avalanche for this Naafiri. And we talked about it going into this game. Both teams play very confident when they have themselves early leads. And AL are just dominating these cross-map plays. It feels like Tarzan is everywhere right now as Hoya is once again picked off. You don't do any damage to Flandre, and once the Naafiri shows up, Hoya has no chance as the scaling Yorick falls further behind. Oh my God.
Not even any time to talk. SeTab having to ult his way out. Well done by SeTab to buffer all the CC coming in, but again, it's just resources allocated from ThunderTalk for what is a hook from Kael. There's nothing burned on the side of AL to even try and make that play happen. So, really big positive coming in from them. But once again, the more things change, the more things stay the same. It might be a different jungle in for ThunderTalk, but it's once again Tarzan just having a phenomenal early game. And things don't get easier playing against the Naafiri, especially with all the setup that AL have. They have so much engage on their side, whether it be a potential Scion coming in, a Nautilus, or a flash coming out from Hope.
I mean, the flash is still great to get back to the turret. I don't know if he necessarily had to flash, so nonetheless, good summer to pick off for XiaoHuanGren. It can be a target for TT to revisit by this point, as they're trying to make their mark on these pick plays, but Shanks once again just dodging all knockups that SeTab tries to throw this Annie's way and gets himself out of a bind, committing his own ultimate. But it does lend a bit towards TT because we are waiting to see if they can chain their ultimates together. No matter how far they fall behind in the early game, they can put a good bullet time down alongside this Rel and the Yone. It can work its magic.
Yeah, I just get a little bit worried about this play now for ThunderTalk. You have no Sejuani ultimate, you have no Yone ultimate, and you have to go and contest this dragon. It becomes a lot more difficult when you don't have any real way to start the fight or catch anybody out, and AL have full control over this dragon pit. We are going to see at least a little bit of push coming in the mid lane from ThunderTalk to try and force AL to do something, but Tarzan just going to be happy to look for a skirmish around this area, try to stall out as much time as possible for Hope to be able to set up into a good position. We'll see if they want to prioritize the dragon on spawn. Remember, ThunderTalk was the team to get that first Drake, as Flandre actually going pretty low on the top side here. Don't think it's going to be exploitable, but
he's just
it's
healing
all
it
going
all
to be the
back
dance
up.
now.
First item advantage really shown for Flandre, and that was going to be my next point, right? Partly because Hope is going that lethality Varus, so the Yone, see you later, maiden. Not the Yone, the Youmu's comes through, that cheaper lethality item. You get that spike for Hope, and Tarzan already has the Spirit Shojin done. Despite this, though, with the wave states not in control for AL, they are actually going to get bullied out of the pit. Problem for TT is they still don't have some of these ultimates coming online. The Glacial Prison is coming very soon, but Kael is immediately going to be picked off,
Flandre
locked up with the Magnet Storm. Feather too far forward, but Kael will not fall until the kills finally flow through. Fate Seal comes across for SeTab. He gets himself right back out where he came through, and it's going to have to be Tarzan once again, just like game one the last time round, to try and clean up the fight for AL. But the only kill they end up finding is SeTab, and Tarzan is not going to dart over another wall into darkness.
Really thought that fight was going to be more AL favored, but Kael getting caught out a little bit too early. It's just a little bit of a disconnect. I get that the Dragon was going down, but one of the big advantages AL had there is that Flandre had access to teleport, whereas Hoya did not. I figured that that was going to be coming in from the Scion, but he has to keep the wave on the top side, so it ends up being a much more even fight than expected. ThunderTalk tries their best to be able to pull it back, but Tarzan's just too strong at this point in the game. We're going to get a replay here. Kael just a little bit too far forward. This is a big vision difference. He has to face check this brush, and Feather more than happy to be able to capitalize. Hope going to try to pull as much back as he can, but XiaoHuanGren once again kind of whiffing on that Sejuani ultimate. Not the first time this game that has happened. An awesome combo. As you mentioned in draft, the Wombo really strong, but unfortunately you didn't pick off the dog, and that's really the priority target that you need to get in these fights to secure these objectives.
Big stun there from Shanks as well on that bullet time. Might have seen more kills drop if he doesn't get that one. In the picture-in-picture while we were gone, Hoya did finally kill off Flandre, but as a Scion always likes to do, he dies for the benefit of his teammate. Shanks picks up that kill on the drive-by. So that is a 3-0 Annie and a 3-0 Nefiri, who wherever they are, they can delete somebody at will, and you're seeing Shanks drop the full Malignance combination, and SeTab getting a lot more hurt up than the last time, and look who's nearby, Kman, to try and capitalize. The very man we just mentioned has the blast cone if he wants to get closer, but instead he's just going to cut down with the immediate dash. SeTab has nowhere to go, but back to base. Tarzan scrounges up his 4th kill of the game.
Tarzan is absolutely everywhere on the map as we see a bit of a replay of the kill onto topside here. Hoya going a little bit deep to have to get it. It sets Shanks up for the 1-for-1 in the end, but as we can see on the main screen now, Shanks going to be able to pick up that tower on the top side, and it's all thanks to Tarzan once again, and you know, Shanks and Tarzan playing off of each other. Shanks realizing that he can get all of that poke down, but it's just more gold going into the pocket of the priority targets. Every single time that Tarzan makes a play, it becomes harder and harder to imagine a world where ThunderTalk can easily win these 5v5s. We talked about the Wombo combo for them, but it's not like there's no engage on the side of AL. They have a ton of single target damage. If you can get on a Misfortune or even a Yone early on in these fights, the damage is gone from ThunderTalk and things become more difficult as the Rift Herald gets started here.
XiaoHuanGren going to start that one up. This Tarzan looks to clear his red buff, but AL not going to go quietly out of the river here. When I said trying to help XiaoHuanGren burn this thing down, they've got SeTab coming from the top side as well. Top laners have TP advantage towards Hoya. We'll see if he joins the fight. The Glacial Prison does go wide from XiaoHuanGren, and Tarzan just walks up, steals away the Eye of the Rift Herald. The Fate Seal from SeTab falls just a couple yards short, and he pays the price. Timbers out from Shanks, Feather next to fall. AL dominating this top side river fight.
It's a 3rd Sejuani ultimate, a 3rd Glacial Prison that ends up going wide, and it allows Tarzan to get into the pit and secure the Rift Herald for the team. At that point, the fight is super easy. 1xN has no opportunity to get even a little bit of the bullet time off for the 2nd straight fight. It's just a phenomenal setup once again for AL, and this time you can't even really point to the map advantage. It's just a bit of a player diff, and I think that's what we were talking about. You needed to be able, if you're ThunderTalk, to showcase that you can compete hands-wise, and right now AL is doing everything in their power to show that they are in control.
And then we have Flandre just playing his own game. It's like those side-scrollers where you just face endless armies until you finally drop off. That's Flandre every time he tries to catch a wave right now into this bot lane turret. And TT are looking to push him over the ledge into another death here, potentially, with Feather and XiaoHuanGren. But once more, AL are quicker on the read, and they're going to cover their valiant top laner, who will just be answering Yorick waves all game long. But the way this game's going, that's all you really need to do is Flandre.
Yeah, we're going to get a replay here of this fight. The moment oh, he actually dodges the Glacial Prison with the untargetable. So really nice job there from Tarzan. He's able to get in and very easily steal away that objective. But I think the thing to highlight here is just how 1xN can't sit still. So much of the damage on ThunderTalk's side right now is coming from bullet time, but being made on the bot side. Tarzan again
TT tried to do a bit of a death brush to bait Shanks in, but they get spotted out, and they get pushed away from this bot side. Does allow 1xN to get a mid-wave in here, so small little wins, but again, as that last replay, even if it was cut short, showed, TT have not been able to chain anything to set up the magnets or the bullet time. SeTab's only hit one big Fate sealed, and this team has had a record of kind of just bowing out of games where they've fallen behind, and they are sitting so much behind with the gold lead. And now SeTab is learning what it's like to play against tanks right now as he completely gets bodied in the side lane. And that's the curious thing, is AL are actually switching up the lane assignments a bit right now, Kman.
Yeah, I think the concern for AL is just how out of the game SeTab is in terms of his damage. There's not really a way for him to do much into his own matchup, but ThunderTalk's caught once again here.
XiaoHuanGren is pretty tanky. He does have 3 of the 6 kills for TT, so he slips out from the Heartsteel, but Tarzan's going to be happy with that, just claiming the river as his own. And he'll jump on the first Chemtech Drake of the Chemtech Soul. TT going to just drop this one, as they have to do in the current game state.
Yeah, there's no way to contest this, and as we were talking about for SeTab, he's in such a brutal spot. He gets stunned up. Is he even winning this fight?
No, he's not. I think he's hurting himself every time he hits Flandre at this rate, and Hoya not doing any better in his lane assignment. So full Tibbers combo comes across. Hoya's backed off his turn, and York running away from structures is never a good thing.
Yeah, this has been the reason Annie has grown in priority so much. Is it's constant pressure in the mid game. You can pretty much regularly drop Tibbers once that Malignance is built in the mid game, and especially if you get any sort of early action and early kills, as Shanks has done, it just becomes so difficult to actually contest. As we see a teleport coming in from Hoya.
Shanks, you saw the TP, buddy.
Bubble Flash.
Okay, he is completely dead to the minions. That is some of the head-scratching plays that we've seen from Shanks recently in AL's woes from last week.
He actively just walked into the teleport below half health on Annie. It is definitely a curious decision. Does force the flash out of Yorick to follow Shanks over the wall, but I would consider that a big win. Not only for ThunderTalk, but, yeah, that's your third kill for Yorick. So, definitely a lot to be interested in there. I'm just curious to see what even the thought process was. Did Shanks just...
You didn't see? They toggled vision, and it looks like Shanks... They toggle vision for half a second. It looked like he didn't. But by the time you get that close to the brush, you definitely are going to watch the... I mean, it's the new teleport, guys. You see everybody flying around the map. I don't know. Head scratcher, and that's really what it's going to be here for AL. And what we're looking for them to fix on is mid-game mistakes to let teams stick around. That was the definition of what we just saw from Shanks.
Yeah, you don't really... understand the play, but it's not like a game-destroying play or anything like that. AL still definitely in full control of this as long as they're able to stay active, but the Yorick win condition has become even more prevalent for ThunderTalk as we move forward. I think these 5v5s are only going to become harder for them because of the engage, and unfortunately Feather, he should be tanky enough to get out of here.
I don't know.
I think.
We're talking about 2-item Tarzan with all the confidence in the world. He'll let Feather trickle on away for this point. The current timers we've got here with the waves shoved and SeTab having to respond on this top side. And a reset from Hoya. Do have a unique window if AL want to take it to try and start this Otacon. Curious how confident Tarzan is in that. And they'll instead just look to try and get control of those wave states once more. And that's the first building block into setting up all these plays for Tarzan, why he seems like he's everywhere on the map, is he's got these long lanes to play for in top and bot. So Tarzan just kind of hovering that bottom quadrant, looking for potentially his next target.
Yeah, I like the wave control idea here. I think for AL, the name of the game right now is set up for this bot lane to become the pivotal point on the map with both Dragon and Otacon available in about 2 minutes. If you're going to be able to get to that point, that's going to force a 5v5 from ThunderTalk that I'm just not sure they win at this point in the game. So I'm sure AL is going to be focused on prioritizing that. For now, if you're ThunderTalk, though, as much as you are a little bit out of your own primary win condition here, this game is certainly not over. Like we said, the Yorick is available, and Yone can eventually get back into this game if given enough time, but see if AL end up allowing that time to even exist in the first place as we get some more action on the bot side. Flandre gonna perfectly buffer. Yeah, perfectly buffer that Glacial Prison coming in from XiaoHuanGren, and unfortunately those Sejuani ultimates just not been particularly useful this game, sometimes to no fault of the jungler.
That one is not the fault of the jungler. The ones I saw earlier, Sorry, XiaoHuanGren, you're not getting away with it at this point. But he's still committed to trying to buy space for Hoya. You could see TT's win con sort of switching up here by this point as they really try to lean into Hoya with some of these death brushes. But the vision from AL is just so on point. They spot 1xN and Feather hovering back towards this side, so Flandre has no reason to get anywhere close to his turret. And while that's going on, Hope knocks down the mid-tier 1 turret, going to rotate over, and Tarzan will be sneaky as ever, finding an angle to dash in on some of these carries, but he does have to be careful. Kael, once again, singled out as the initial target, has to burn his flash back towards Hope, but SeTab, off to his own world right now, won't be able to get through to the rest of the masses. Tarzan hopped on, using a target, will get right back over the wall, as AL continues to be as slippery as rubber.
Yeah, I mean, you can't catch AL, but it's well played by ThunderTalk to actually be able to establish priority there. Tarzan ends up jumping over the wall to separate him and Nautilus. No setup there, so Otacon actually going to be started here by ThunderTalk.
They have all of those Wombo ultimates except XiaoHuanGren's Glacial Prisons up in mere seconds. Can Tarzan steal another big 50-50? Kael gonna brunt Feather. Tarzan gonna go on target, but the bullet time does hit its mark onto the Naafiri, but unfortunately, SeTab's fate sealed falls flat once more, and Shanks knocks him down. And with that, you allow the resets for Tarzan to come through and mop up 2 kills. The Otacon at a price for ThunderTalk.
Yeah, I mean, ThunderTalk make the right play to go for Otacon. I don't even consider it a massive loss with just how strong that objective is now that it has this big burst of damage on takedown. The new Otacon, of course, on the new map. But one thing to point out is that Dragon priority now should go entirely over to Tarzan. That will be 3rd Drake's sole point. We're going to get a replay of this fight. This is the problem for ThunderTalk and how these 5v5s go. There's so much single target lockdown that if you don't get a massive ultimate coming in from Feather, you just don't really have the priority to set up SeTab, who just gets chain CC'd into death after using his ult in the fight. Hoya's way too deep, and he's going to get punished for that as well. But again, at least you're able to secure the objective, which I consider to be the important part.
Yeah, never a fan of Feather flashing onto a Nautilus and committing the full rail combo. That is not going to bode well. But like you mentioned, small little wins that are keeping TT competitive by this point. As you look across at the items, there aren't any major leads except for the jungle by this point. You've got 2 items on both your mid laners, and the big one to point out is SeTab. Yone, just like his brother Yasuo, is one of those champions where it doesn't really matter what your score line is. Once you hit 3, 4 items on a champion like Yone, you can get right back to the winning ways that you might have had if you were 5-0 out of lane.
Yeah, that's the lucky part of playing a bailout champion like that, but the problem for SeTab here is I don't really foresee an easy way for him to get in so long as AL are keeping their mind on it. Hoya could be caught once again, though, here.
We've seen this play before. This Flandre is far too tanky to deal with, and Tarzan has his own minions or pack to try and deal with, but my lord is the maiden making this one difficult. The ghouls are not to be trifled with Tarzan, and now Hoya gets to buy more space to get heals after heals. Untargetable does dodge out that big call towards the minions. So Tarzan able to find himself the kill, but looking a bit harder than it was earlier in the game.
Yeah, this time Shanks actually playing respectfully on the top side is going to back off and just seed the top lane tier 1, so it is just a 1-for-0. But interesting to see where Tarzan's putting the priority now. Sion's going to continue to push on the bot side, and Tarzan will be taking a lot of those camps. Baron is up. I expected more priority on Vision game around Baron at this point, but a 7-kill Naafiri is just a dangerous proposition. I don't think I need to tell anybody just how strong that is as Flandre takes the tier 2 here on the bot lane. Another big pickup for AL and the prize for that catch onto Hoya. But SeTab once again just under the responsibility of catching waves and not really able to do much else.
GA looks like it's going to be the purchase here from Tarzan, which I do love on this Naafiri that can be so slippery, but also there is always that chance the TT do just catch Tarzan, Shanks, anybody on AL in these big wombo combos, and to see AL recognizing that in their lead that they're currently holding to try and nullify that wombo more with the Zanyas for Shanks, with this GA that's going to come through for Tarzan soon. Oh, I completely got baited by itemization. That's a death stance. Disregard everything I just said about Tarzan.
Yeah, he's going for the stats. He's not worried about dying in these fights. He's worried about killing in these fights, which I certainly can't blame him for.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, you gotta take the player into account there. But Yeah, I still think this is a really advantageous game state for AL. The moment that they can start pressuring and you know, starting the dance around Baron, I think things start to get a little bit more straightforward for how they want to step up into fights. But that's the problem for ThunderTalk. How do you walk up into any of these situations if there is a moment where AL is going to be able to get full vision over that area and control the amount that ThunderTalk can see? Now you're walking into Annie stun, you're walking into Varus ultimate, you're walking into a Nautilus. It becomes so impossible for ThunderTalk to really try and make plays if they're not able to control the map, and so they have to play really careful from this point onwards, but we see the pings coming down from them as Tarzan makes his way up.
Do you want to point out another build augmentation that's coming through for TT, recognizing how these last couple of fights have went? SeTab has a Quicksilver stash, I think, just to make sure that he doesn't get Tibbers ulted after his Fate sealed and dies before he can go back to his Spirit form. XiaoHuanGren, very tanky by this point, going to eat up a couple of key summoners. Chains of Corruption, everything coming down to try and burn the Sejuani. XiaoHuanGren is able to flash out, so you get the Varus ulti out, but the Sejuani very, very hurt. Tarzan on the hunt, going to allow for AL to reset vision around that Baron. Oh, yeah, no, never mind.
It's a
TP play,
they don't want the Baron vision. They want Hoya again.
All right. Slow comes across with that ult onto Flandre. Good job using the space by that big-time E drop through for Hoya, but Shanks has more than enough damage to just pop him if he gets the stun, and the pick play comes across with a single target damage comp.
Yeah, there's no pressure on the Baron because they have all of the priority over the area, so they just decide to pick up the free kill and SeTab.
SeTab! Oh, that is not a safe place to recall. Fate Sealed will not get you enough space. And we have an 8th kill coming through for Tarzan, repeating his Fury performance against the very team he smacked down just a month prior.
And that's a huge mistake from SeTab, just overextending because he trusts his ability to be able to escape with the Fate Seal, but he's not able to get out. It's perfectly played, and AL catches him on the back. That's free Baron. There's no contest here. There's no way to actually do anything. The answer is actually going to be them taking away the Dragon and, you know, denying the soul at least for 5 more minutes, but this is Baron for 1 Chem Dragon. This is a gigantic win for AL, and it's all thanks to, you know, SeTab just being a little bit overextended here, and it might not even be Dragon.
Flandre! Oh my god, the bus is loose. And he's smacking down onto 1xN, who immediately burns both summoners. Flandre just casually 1 versus 2. Does not even see Feather, and XiaoHuanGren cannot finish the Dragon on his own. They left the Sejuani out to dry, and Tarzan flinks him into the wind. They do get the Chemtech Soul, Kman. AL are grabbing everything on the map right now, and next might just be Hoya. If Tarzan can sleuth him out, and he will, face checks right into Hoya, who is probably the most formidable opponent right now for this Naafiri. But good thing for Tarzan, there is no friends left in this top side. A 9th kill comes over for the Tarzan Naafiri.
I think that was the 2nd and 3rd nail for ThunderTalk in the coffin. It's just the most brutal play you can possibly think of. SeTab getting caught, which gives over Baron for free, and because Flandre makes the fantastic play to ult down and disrupt everything and, you know, burn everything from 1xN by himself, all of a sudden there's no damage on the Dragon, which stalls enough for Tarzan to be able to make it down. And for the 2nd time today in a 50-50 smite, Tarzan's able to win it. Soul going over. That's not just Soul, it's 3 Chem Dragons and Chem Soul for anyone's legend, and so they're going to be sitting in a very, very dangerous spot, and Tarzan now sitting on 9 kills. He's going to be working for that 4th item. I imagine he'll have it on the back, the full item there, whatever he wants to go for, but it's gone from bad to worse for ThunderTalk, and I can't imagine it's going to get better at any point.
And another, you know, pain point for this comp for TT that we're now seeing materialize that we kind of skipped over a bit, Kman, and I'll give you a clue on what the problem is. Look at Flandre's build path and tell me what that signals about TT's comp.
Yeah, I think we're looking at a little bit of a damage profile, lack of diversity, we can just say.
Really?
So this Scion has become unkillable from this point onwards, and we're seeing that affect the map as we see the siege down now on the top side.
Flandre does not care about turrets. He cares about getting kills to his buddies. Goodbye, Feather. Shanks grabs that kill. Doesn't even need Tibbers this time. And we're using Wombo combo ultimates just to get out to safety. Glacial Prison does land on a Kael, but boom goes the dynamite. Shanks drops Tibbers onto 3. And just like that, TT are melted under their own Nexus turrets. And Tarzan wants to put the cherry on top of this milkshake of a game for anyone's legend. Diving in onto Hoya. First Nexus turret's going to go down as SeTab does recall. Minion waves coming across here, and Flandre is just so damn tanky. You can't stop this man. AL cannot be slowed down as TT are going to finally crumble to the might of one of the top contenders in the LPL to go up 1-0 in our series.
What a win for AL. It was micro lead after micro lead after micro lead that turned into a game's worth of gigantic advantages for a team in AL that is so clinical at executing. If there is a lesson to be learned here, in my opinion, come on, man. What are we doing giving AL Nefiri Varus in 1-2 in draft? How are we getting away with that on red side? It's just incredible stuff from them.
Yeah. I like the confidence. We talked about TT. We're most excited about this team when SeTab is comfortable and confident, so they picked the Yone for him. But man, did AL make it a point. We're going to see in these replays, in every single fight, they could be losing Kael to a free pick, Kman. It didn't matter. They were just making sure SeTab was useless.
Yeah, I mean, if we highlighted jungle mid as the priority for both of these teams in the pregame, to see XiaoHuanGren and SeTab both struggle so much in this one to be able to match the pressure of Tarzan and match the pressure of Shanks on the other side, it just goes to show that if you are able to get that lead in the mid game, as we highlighted, it's just impossible. And Shanks really with a masterclass on the Annie, utilizing the pressure of Tibbers so well to not only obviously be able to pick up kills and be useful in team fights and create opportunities to wombo off of for Tarzan to follow up, but just chunking out Yone and chunking out Yorick before every single fight started, and creating situations where they could play wherever they wanted on the map.
That game, unfortunately, in champion profile for Tarzan, and result did not look any different with a swap out of Beichuan versus XiaoHuanGren since the first time these two teams went round. But for anyone's legends, right? We could talk about how TT. The question that we posed came in. I want to hear sort of a half answer from you. Is that the kind of game you want to see AL bring, knowing how wacky of a week prior they just had?
Yes, I want to see confidence. That's what we want to see. We want to see this team play like they're one of the best teams in the world. Because I think when they really start to, say, maybe we're, as good as our opponent or close to not as good as our opponent, that's when things start to get a little bit more murky for them in terms of how they draft. I think seeing the Nefiri, seeing the Annie, all these playmakers that want to get moving on the map, seeing that identity for AL shows me that it's not just, we want to try and play through the early game. It's we're going to beat you through the early game. It's having that confidence to understand that they can hands check whoever they want to go into, and we see that with the damage diversity coming in from the side of AL.
Yeah, wow. They got 4 players over 20k damage in a 32-minute game. Very, very impressive. And it's nice to see that the Varus win rate, even though Hope didn't really have to do much in this game, continues to skyrocket for this guy on this champion. But looking a bit forward here, I want to bring the fearless factor in a bit here, Kman, as we're going to roll through these highlights. This game did take a lot of LPL heavy hitters off the board for game 2 if you look at the drafts.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is this actually, to me, slightly favors ThunderTalk in a weird way. Obviously staying on blue side, but things like Nefiri being taken off the board, and more notably, XiaoHuanGren just did not look comfortable on Sejuani in terms of playing this facilitator type of role that maybe Beichuan would have been more comfortable playing before the swap. They're very different players, and it just didn't really feel like that was ever, the identity. I think for me, especially looking at another game on blue side, presumably, for ThunderTalk, I'm excited to potentially see something more aggressive come out in the jungle. We still have, as we mentioned in the pregame, things like Lilia, things like Zyra if you want an AP jungle coming out, or alternatively, Xin Zhao, Vi. A lot of these more skirmish-heavy picks are still available. That's really what I'm going to be looking at for ThunderTalk because they're still on the board, and especially with the Nefiri as kind of that primary carry taken away for AL, it should be a little bit of an easier matchup for them.
Yeah, we'll get a bit into Game 2 draft once that comes rolling around, but I would love to see for TT Viari. That would be the comfort space here for XiaoHuanGren and SeTab. Is we go back through these highlights. My favorite part about this Dragon fight is we showed in the clips the last time round. There was a TTAL fight from that game 1 where TT actually were coming out with kind of a big win, and then Tarzan just flies over a wall and kills everybody. We almost got that again in this very game. It's always fun how you have those moments of symmetry because you think about it, right? Like, teams play each other twice, but the gap in between these teams playing each other twice is so many games compared to what you'd normally expect.
Yeah, especially with how Group Ascend has gone, because we've seen so many back-to-back series going into the second part of this, round robin, the double round robin. For these teams who have such a long stretch apart from each other, they've grown into completely different versions of themselves.
Exactly.
Shout out to Shanks for this play.
We don't talk about
the teleport. Still a little confused as to what happened there, but that's really the only major mistake that AL made over the course of this game. Everything else felt really clean, and I think that's the encouraging part, is they were aggressive without overextending. And I think sometimes it's hard to draw the line for a team like
really
that wants to play really confident in the early game, but I think they did a great job of understanding exactly what their limits were and, really being able to establish tempo, as you said, in the game throughout pushing waves and then great vision control.
And it's always helpful when Flandre gets to play a Scion game and he's unbothered the entire time. He gets to play a Mega Tank into a full AD composition. And this is the type of things you get through with Flandre. But, talking about these junglers, right? This series, I know XiaoHuanGren has definitely had a lot of welcome to the league moments, but you called it out with some of the 50-50 smites. This definitely, for XiaoHuanGren, is showing him what the ceiling of an LPL jungler looks like right now. It felt. And we're only through one game, I would say.
Hey, I've been pretty vocal throughout multiple different avenues that I think Tarzan has a really strong argument to be the best jungler in the world. I really do think that that's, a big argument. XiaoHuanGren, of course, hoping to get to a level where he can compete there, eventually, but we definitely saw a bit of a difference this game, and quite frankly, to put it bluntly, he has to be better in game number 2. There really is just no other way to put it. If ThunderTalk want to have a shot at being able to compete with a team like AL, Tarzan has to be thrown off of these early plays that he is so common in making, and he has to be put on the back foot, and that's really going to come down to whether or not the new jungler for ThunderTalk with this adversity can step up in a big moment.
Yeah, a guy that has been in the TT system for 5 years, playing in the LDL, finally getting his chance, but he's going to have to watch his jungle counterpart grab himself another MVP. Goes double-digit on the year. Tarzan, just like the last time he played Nefiri up against ThunderTalk, grabs himself player of the game as he continues to push the now Kman agenda of potentially best jungler in the world. If you want to fight him on those comments, you can do it in Twitch chat, but make sure to also do it on his awesome YouTube channel, Super Kman Rocks. Got to plug that one as we do.
Thank you.
Yeah, I got you, man. I just as our deal, had there, Kman, every subscriber bump you get off that call out, $5. Okay, just remember, per sub. No, I'm kidding. I'm messing around. Speaking of subscribers, though, I do have one shout out to give here before we step away for just a bit here. And that shout out goes to our Coffee and YouTube subscribers. We're extremely grateful to both groups because they have allowed this show to level up a ton. A lot of the initial payments that come from Coffee and YouTube subscribers go into upgrading the broadcast, but a huge bulk goes to paying on-air talent and the content creators here at the unofficial LPL English broadcast. You can subscribe to the Coffee. It is linked in the chat, and you can unlock awesome perks like unique access to early content and the ability to ask interview questions to our awesome on-site interviews. So shout out all of the Coffee and YouTube subscribers. But focusing back in on where we're at in the LPL day is a dominating Game 1 win for AL as they try and fight their way back to the top team in Group Ascend. Can they get it done in 2-0 fashion like last time, or do ThunderTalk have something in the chamber for us? We'll find